Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This Yom, or this day, is the 16th of the second month, and we are coming together to read the Shepard of Hermas. We're starting with book one of the three books, and this is the Visions of Hermas. Last Shabbat, we covered the introduction for this, as well as getting into a little bit of some contemporaries of his, as well as Clement, Ignatius of Antioch. We went into some detail about the letters that we have from him, his martyrdom, what he did there, and how it was a great example with his being taken from Antioch to Rome, and how different assemblies would come bringing ambassadors to try to supply his needs and take care of him. They would receive letters and they would also give him letters. It was a great example of the apostolic constitutions being played out in truth, because there's a whole section on the martyrs in there and how to treat those that are persecuted for righteousness' sake, whether they're in prison, whether they're going to be taken to the gladiator rings or taken to the mines to die. However, someone who was chosen and representative of the truth was to be afflicted. Those that did what they could for the least of these, his brethren, were going to be rewarded. And so the instructions that are enjoined in the apostolic constitutions, you can literally see them walking out in how they interacted with him while he was going to be a martyr and a witness to the truth. But we've covered a few examples of his letters, the shorter corrupted versions, which were misconstrued and what's used to discredit Ignatius's writings altogether, and then the longer versions, which are pretty amazing, that go along with everything that's in scripture, and they're very clear about the intent of them. It was to confirm individuals in the truth, to get everyone to willingly cling to their overseers and to those that were by the word and by his emissaries appointed over them with their willing consent. But right here, we're going to see he was a contemporary of Clement, and the times that they were living in was, as if you've been watching the anti-Mashiach or Antichrist for Dummies videos, they cover the actual history of what was going on with the around the destruction of Jerusalem, or Yerushalayim, and how it reveals the coming of the anti-Mashiach, the works and the ways of and deeds of the Nicolaitans, and their collusion with Vespasian, and then Titus and Domitian, and how all of that history has been suppressed. So once you have that context, and if you see those, especially the early videos there, you'll see the type of existence that Hermas was in the middle of and the tribulation that they're talking about going through. It was for the first 300 years of believers that they had 10 different persecutions, just like the 10 trials of Yahusuf when he was taken into captivity after being sold by his brothers, which I believe it's the Testament of Benjamin or Benjamin, where it explains that Jacob is congratulating Yahusuf, his son, that has even greater bowels compassion for his sons than he does, because he was asking Jacob to forgive them for the things that they had done to him. And Jacob, mentions to his son, Yahusuf, that he, in him, was the type of the suffering servant, of the Mashiach that was to come, and the things that he suffered. You can see the 10 different sufferings that he went through, which was reminiscent of the 10 trials that Abraham had to go through and overcame. It's the same thing that our Mashiach, being tried by the devil, overcame and was without sin. That's what his body was walking out in history as well. While not everyone continued in the truth, those that were made perfect became like their master, and they were martyrs. But without further ado, this is the Shepard of Hermas, book one, which is the Visions, chapter one. It says, "The man who nourished me has sold me to a certain road in Rome. Many years after this, I saw her and desired that I would make myself known to her again, and I began to be loving her as a sister. After some time, I saw her bathing herself in the Tiber River, and I gave my hand to her, and I led her out of the river. Therefore, after I saw her beauty, I thoroughly rationalized in my heart, saying how happy I would be if I was having a woman of such beauty and of such manner. And I deliberated with myself only this, but no other, not even one. And just for context, we'll see that he gets rebuked for this because he's married. It's not a very big thing, but he's rebuked because he's married and he's having thoughts of another woman in his heart. And the whole reason this came about, we'll find out here shortly, is because his children and his wife themselves are sinning or doing wrong. And just like it says in the original covenant, when Shaul is speaking to the people and they asked for a sovereign over them, it was evil in the eyes of Yahuwah that they would want a man over them instead of him. But he said, if you serve Yahuwah, then both you and your sovereign will serve him. But if you are disobedient, then both you and your sovereign shall be consumed. And then you have the example of the children doing evil. And so he sends Satan to entice David to number them, which was not supposed to be done. And he numbered all the children, and the plague went through. It's the same picture here where the head of the house, the man, the Mashiach is the head of every man, the man is the head of his wife and the head of his house. And so, in that same capacity, when the household is doing evil, the man is enticed and overcome, and affliction is able to come upon them. And it's explained in here that it has to happen to him so that they'll be affected. All of these things are congruent and they go along with what we can find in the scriptures, which is why I was pointing that out plainly. But you can see it's a little thing, and it starts this whole process of these revelations and visions that he's going to be given, both a correction for his household and for those that he was going to be an overseer for. But it says, after some time, while I was going into the countryside, and while I was esteeming in the creatures of Elohim about how great and remarkable and powerful they are, I fell into slumber while walking around. And a ruach took me and carried me away through a certain roadless region or wilderness, through which no man was able to make his way. Now this region was precipitous and had been ripped off by the waters. Therefore, after I crossed through that river, I came to level ground, and I put my knees on the ground, and I began to be praying to Yahuwah and to be confessing forth my sins. Now, while I was praying to Yahuwah, the Shamayim was opened up, and I looked at that woman whom I had desired, greeting me out of the Shamayim, or the sky, saying, Be rejoicing, Hermas. But after I looked at her, I said, Lady, what are you doing here? But she answered me, I was taken up in order that I might convict you of your sins before Yahuwah. I said to her, Are you to convict me right now? No, she declared. Instead, hear the words which I am going to be saying to you. The Elohim, the one who is residing in the Shamayim, and created what is out of what is not, and multiplied and grew for the sake of his set apart assembly, is being angered with you because you sinned against me. I answered her and said, Sinned against you? How so? Or at what time did I utter a shameful word to you? Did I not always esteem you It says, as a false mighty one, a female mighty one. Let's see what that says down there. The Greek is daughter. So why that says something different, I don't know. But did I not always esteem you as a daughter? Did I not always respect you as a sister? Woman, why are you falsely charging me with these wicked and unclean things? After she laughed at me, she said, the desire of that wickedness did ascend upon your heart. Or are you not thinking it to be a wicked matter, if at any time the wicked desire might ascend upon the heart of a righteous man? Yet it is a sin, even a great sin, she declared. For the righteous man deliberates with himself about what is righteous, or he thinks about righteous things. Therefore, in the act for him to be deliberating with himself righteous things, his esteem is setting itself straight in the Shamayim, and he has Yahuwah placeable in every affair of his, or he has Yahuwah in all his affairs, in all that he does. But the ones who are deliberating with themselves wicked things in their hearts are drawing death and captivity onto themselves, especially the ones who are acquiring this age and are prancing in their riches and are not holding themselves to the good things, the things which are to come. There's a lot right here, but we'll go ahead and finish reading, then we'll cover this again, okay? It says, their inner beings will change their mind, whichever ones have no expectation in Yahuwah. Instead, they have despaired of them and their life. Instead, you be praying to Elohim, and he will heal the sinful actions of you and your whole house, and of all the set apart ones. It says, after the event, for her to utter these words, the Shamayim were locked, and I was totally shuddering and grieving. But I was saying to myself, if even this sin is written up against me, how will I be able to be delivered? Or how will I make atonement to Yahuwah Elohim about my many sins, my complete sins? Or with what kind of words might I ask Yahuwah in order that he might be favorable to me? And he's questioning this because all he did was have a thought in his heart, right? And he says, if this is being held against him, how is he going to be delivered? As I was taking counsel and discerning these things in my heart, I looked at the great white seat for reclining, standing opposite me, made out of snow white wool like snow. And a woman, an elderly lady, in brightest apparel, came, having a book in her hand, and she sat down alone, and she greeted me, be rejoicing, Hermas. And I, grieving and weeping, spoke to her, be rejoicing, lady. And she spoke to me, why are you sullen, or why are you so sullen, Hermas? Why is the long-suffering and not easily upset one, the always laughing one, so downcast in his appearance and not cheerful? And I spoke to her, by a most good woman, saying that I sinned against her. But she was declaring, far be such a matter from the servant of Elohim, or the slave of Elohim. Instead, a desire about her surely ascended upon your heart. Indeed, a deliberation such as this brings a sin upon the servants of Elohim. For it is a wicked and horrible deliberation against all solemn, or against an all solemn ruach, and within one which has been has already been proved. If at any time it might desire a wicked work, and especially when that Ruach is Hermas, the self restrained, the one who is distancing himself from every wicked desire and is full of all simplicity and a great lack of evil. And if you're familiar at all with the common scriptures, all throughout the Old Covenant, it talks about how the simple are, especially in the Proverbs, the conditions of what the simple will do, how Chokmah or wisdom is received by them, and how they are to leave the simple ones and live and walk in the way of comprehension. How to do that is explained throughout and confirmed in the renewed covenant, where our Mashiach compares his righteous ones who hear like little children that come to him and enter into the reign. So just like children listening to their father with an intent to learn and do, we have to be the same way. And that's the simplicity here, where you are prudent to do good or tob, but like babes in evil. That's the ones that will be delivered from the wrath to come. And even when they don't know right, he will guide them and correct them and bring them to the truth. This is the evidence you can see right here and what we see witness to throughout the scriptures as well. Continuing on verse 14, it says, "Instead, this is not the reason why Elohim is being angered with you. Instead, it is in order that you might turn around your house, which acted lawlessly against Yahuwah and against you, their parents. Instead, because you are fond of children or your children, you were not admonishing them. Instead, you permitted them to be terribly destroyed." And quite like Eli, the Kohen, who would not rebuke and reprove his children for walking contrary to the laws of Elohim and abusing the children while they are in the position of Kohen. It says, "This is why Yahuwah is being angered with you. Instead, he will heal all the wicked deeds which have previously come to be in your house. For it is because of their sins and lawlessness that you were destroyed by your mundane acts," or by your business, it says. "Instead, the abundant compassion of Yahuwah had mercy," or chesed, that's covenant love or tender loving kindness, "on you and on your house, and will make you strong, and will found you in his esteem. Only may you not become lazy. Instead, be being of a tob, inner being, or good soul, and be making your house strong. For as a bronzesmith, by hammering his work, obtains mastery of it for whatever affair he wants, so also does the account, the daily one, the righteous one, obtain mastery from all wickedness. Therefore, may you not stop admonishing your children." And this is, he's saying, like a metal worker, a bronze worker, hammering his work, continually beating it until it gets into the shape he desires. this is this is the how he's saying that you do this with your children in relation to my word. This is where it says, "Discipline your children," and you discipline them with the rod of his word, the admonitions that come from the word of his mouth. It's like a rod we beat not only our children with, but ourselves, to convict us of our wrong, to get us to turn from them. It says, "For I have come to know that if at any time they will change their mind out of a whole heart of theirs, they will be enrolled into the books of the Chai, or life, with the Kodashim, or set apart ones." And those books are what our Mashiach alludes to when he says, "Do not rejoice that the demons are subject to you, but I'll tell you what you should rejoice in. You should rejoice that your name is written in the Shamayim. You're inscribed in his book, as it mentions in the Psalms." And just for a culmination of what that represents, in the book of Gad the seer, chapter 14, it talks about a vision that Gad has during the reign of Shlomo after the death of Dawid. And they're keeping the first of the seventh month, or the Chodesh of the seventh month, what we call Yom Teruah. In there, he has a vision where all the host of the Shamayim and our Mashiach is before the Father with Satan as well. And our Mashiach brings before the Father three books. The first one is the book of the righteous, in which are the righteous deeds of his children. And that one's recited. And then the Father says to him, "These ones will live forever." The adversary mentions to him, he says, but what about those sins? And our Mashiach, like the voice of a ram horn, says, "Silence! Don't you know this day is set apart, Kadosh la Yahuwah, set apart unto Yahuwah?" And then he goes on to read the second book, which has the unintentional sins of the people, the non-malicious sinners of his children. And he, after their deeds are read by our Mashiach, the Father says, "Put that aside, and we'll hold off for a third of the month to see what they will do." And if you know a month is 30 yamim, or 30 days, a third of it would be 10. And on the 10th of the seventh month is the day, or the Yom HaKippurim, what we call the Day of Atonement, where in the original covenant, it was that night before was when Yaakov received the news that Yahusuf had been sold into captivity. And all that night of the ninth and all that day he mourned. And he went on to mourn for an entire year. He wanted to go down into the grave mourning for his son, but he didn't die. And that was when it was first instituted that we are to afflict our beings on the 10th of the seventh month, starting in the evening of the ninth, and because we afflicted the inner being of our Father, and that's when we afflict our beings for the sins we've committed. After he came, there was renewed instructions. It was supposed to be the instructions given from Damascus on how to keep the Day of Atonement for those that were of the renewed covenant, in which you're not sinning anymore, but you do already mourn and fast on different occasions for different reasons. So there was a new instruction that was supposed to be, but I don't know anywhere where it's actually given. Personally, I still fast them because I'm still sinning. I'm just telling you what I know to be, and then what's actually missing there. But it's something we need to pray about and look into more, I think.
Beloved, your volume's gone way down again.
Sorry, I keep looking at my phone and talking at that. I apologize.
Now that's better.
All right. All right, so to continue, she says, after the event of these words of hers to be ceased, she said to me, "Do you want to hear me read aloud?" And I said, "I want to, lady." She said to me, "Become a hearer and be hearing the esteems, or the wonders of Elohim." I heard great and marvelous things from her. Now, we don't know this yet, but just to give you an inside scoop, the woman that he's seen he's revealed to be the assembly, and he sees her in different forms as his inner being is being restored. The assembly is being restored to vigor and youth in the same capacity. So as his inner being is in tatters and aged through these afflictions that he's putting himself through sin, that's how she's represented. It later on, it's described that this is the way our Mashiach revealed himself to Hermas, because that's how he could receive him, and he came to him in a way that he can be received. He condescends himself for the benefit of men, and it's something we can see throughout the scriptures. Whenever the Ruach, or Chokmah, wisdom, is personified as a woman, it's in this capacity. And we can also see examples of it throughout the Proverbs, in the wisdom of Solomon, or Chokmah Shalomo, in Baruch, specifically in second Baruch, when he's having his parables and speaking as Yarushalayim, sending her children away and then receiving them again. It's that same capacity. And then Ezra also sees the assembly as a woman that's changed into the Shamayim Yarushalayim. And these are all before the times of the Shepherd of Hermas. When he came, he sees the assembly as a woman here, and then it's explained to him who it is that's speaking to him and why it's revealed this way. So the full revelation of these things came after he made himself known in the flesh. But we have evidence beforehand. And this is the same type of thing you can see throughout the scriptures on pretty much every topic. He came and fully revealed the truth, but you can take that truth all the way back to the beginning and see that it's in effect. All right, so it says, "And I heard great and marvelous things from her, things which I am not capable of remembering, for all the words were frightening, words which a man is not able to sustain. Therefore I remembered her last words, for they were beneficial to us, or for us, and gentle. Behold, the Elohim of the powers, whom I love, created the world with his mighty power and his great intelligence, and who in his esteemed deliberation has invested his creation with attractiveness, and by his strong word has firmly fixed the Shamayim and founded the earth upon waters, who in his own Chokmah and foresight has created his set apart assembly, which he also, Baruch, or blessed, prospered. Behold, he is discharging the Shamayim and the mountains and the hills and the seas, and everything is becoming level for his elect ones, in order to give back to them what was professed, of which he made a profession with much esteem and joy. So basically, to do what he said he would. If at any time they might keep the lawful decrees of Elohim, which they took alongside in great belief or trustworthiness. Therefore, when she finished reading aloud, and after she was arisen from her seat, or from the seat, 4 youngsters came, and they lifted the seat and went off toward the east. But she called me to herself, and she touched my chest, and she said, "Were you pleased by what I read aloud?" And I said to her, "Lady, the last part pleased me, but the first part was harsh and hard." And there's not a place in scripture where I don't find this to be true. You find the beauty of the promises, the truth of his oath, the covenants, and the unspeakable things that are in store for the righteous. And then you have the condemnations and calamities, the reality of what we're doing, and the bad things that are going to happen because of it. Hand in hand, they go together all throughout the scripture. I think it says it in the recognitions of Clement the Best. It's either a Kepha or one of his taught ones, Clement's brothers, Aquila or Nisita, that say there's no rose without its thorn anymore because of the sin and corruption that's been brought in. But it's the same thing we see here. You have the harsh words that are unpleasant, but also the words that are very beneficial, that are of light and life, and all the things that we're supposed to meditate on and cling to. It says, "But she was declaring to me, saying, the last part was for the righteous ones, but the first for the nations and the seceders, or the seditionists, the traitors, or rebellious. While she was uttering with me, 2 certain men were made to appear, and they lifted her by the arms and went off toward the east to where they had taken the seat. But she went off cheerful, and she said to me as she was going away, be acting like a man, Hermas." All right. All right. So that was the first vision, and then everyone's consensus is that we'll go ahead and continue reading, and we'll just do some comments as we go. We'll pause between each one and check, though, see if we have any questions or comments or anything that you'd like to share. This is vision two. It's not, this was sometime afterwards, and he would have been first a believer with the assembly and then an overseer later on. And this is something that he had personally had been involved with, getting these visions and then sharing them with everyone. And it was literally called his ministry, as we'll see as we go. This is while I was going into the countryside during the season, which was also the same season as a year ago. While I was walking around, was reminded of the vision of a year ago. And once again, a ruach lifted me and carried me away into the same place to where I had also been a year ago, or the same place he was before. It mentioned in a different translation that he was traveling to Coma or from Coma, and I haven't found the actual place of what that was in Italy or Rome. But there's an interesting constellation, or rather, a deacon for the constellation of the Virgin, Virgo. It has, um, sorry about that. It has the Virgin, it's called, or Bethula in Hebrew, has different stars, and the meanings of the stars all point to the works and the ways of our Mashiach and what he's going to do. The lights that reveal the one who made them and named them. Of the major constellations, you have different ones that support them that they call deacons. And each major constellation has three or four of them that help fill out the picture of what each thing represents. In the Virgin or Bethula, what we call Virgo, one of the deacons is called Coma. The modern name for it is Coma Berenicia, or it's like the hair of Bernice, but that's a later perversion from a different time. Originally, it was called Coma, or the desired one, the desired one of the nations, or the coming one, and it was depicted as a woman or as a child on the lap of a woman. So that's the only place I know Coma is referenced anywhere else, and it has an interesting allusion. But getting back to the text here. It says, therefore, after I came into the place, I put my knees on the ground, and I began to be praying to Yahuwah and to be esteeming his name, because he deemed me worthy and made known to me my sins, my former sins. But after the act for me to be arisen from the prayer to Elohim opposite of me, I looked at the elderly woman whom I had seen, or I had also seen a year ago. She was walking around and reading aloud a little book. And she said to me, are you being able to carry back a message of these things to the elect ones of Elohim? And I'm sorry for the way it reads. This is a more literal translation of the Greek text, the way it's written. So that's why it sounds kind of archaic and the wording is a little weird from what you're familiar with. They try to do a literal translation from the Greek. I said to her, lady, I am not being able to remember so many things, but give me the little book, but give the little book to me in order that I might transcribe it. Take it, she declared, and then give it back to me. I took it, and after I retired into a certain place in the field, and if you remember, the field is the world, here you have the penitent one seeking to receive information, and he's asking specifically to have the book so he can transcribe it. And this is also reminiscent of what Abraham, our forefather, walked out when he prayed to be delivered from the unclean ruach oath. what they call the evil spirits or the demons that were leading men astray after the flood. Our Father sent our Mashiach to give him the language of creation, which is the word from the beginning through which all things came to be. They call it Hebrew, and in the Syriac version of the recognitions of Clement, it mentions the Hebrew or the language of creation is the beloved of Elohim. But in the common scriptures, it's also called Yahudith. In places where it traditionally says the language of the Jews in English or the language of the Yahudim, if you look at that word, it's Yahudith, like Yahuda or like Judith, literally same name, but that's the name of the language itself. It's the language of those who confess, acknowledge, and praise Yahuwah. But he was given that language, and he was given the books, the light of knowledge, which was the truth that was made known, to transcribe it and then to study it. We see the same echoed in history with his children here, where he's getting this to transcribe the same thing. She goes on and says, "Take it," she declared, "and then give it back to me." I took it, and after I retired into a certain place in the field, I transcribed all the words to the alphabetical letter, for I was not finding the syllables. Therefore, I myself finished the alphabetical letters of the little book, and the little book was suddenly snatched out of my hand, but I did not see by whom. Now, after 15 days or Yamim, after I fasted and asked much from Yahuwah, the knowledge of the writing was revealed to me. Now these are the things which were written. Hermas, your seed set Elohim aside and reviled against Yahuwah, and in great wickedness they betrayed their parents, and they are reputed as being betrayers of parents. If you remember, it's the first command with promise is to honor your father and your mother. All throughout the scriptures, a child is told how they do that, and they're no better than a slave while they're still a child. Anyone who's under 20 needs to be subject to their parents in all these things, just as Yitzhak was obedient even unto death for his father, and it was accounted unto him for righteousness. We can find that same example even more expounded on and elaborated in Josephus, where he writes about the discourse between the two, Abraham and Yitzhak, when they're going to do these things. And you can really see the heart behind Yitzhak and how it was his will, even if it wasn't the will of Elohim, to be obedient to his father in all things. So, because that was how it was established from the creation, that was what his desire is. And we can see in Yitzhak that that was something that our Creator finds as a commendable trait, where you are considered a friend of Elohim for doing. And after they betrayed them, they were still not profited. Instead, they added still more to their sins and acted of or in acts of licentiousness and minglings together of wickedness. And in this manner, the measure of their lawlessness was filled up. Instead, make these words known to all your children and to your woman or your female partner, who from now is going to be a sister to you. For even she is not distancing herself from the tongue in which she acts wickedly. Basically, she was running her mouth too much, right? Instead, after she has heard these words, she will distance herself from this behavior, and she will obtain loving kindness or mercy. And after the event, for you to make known to them these words, which the Master instructed me, in order to reveal to you, she will be instructed. Then all the sins they previously sinned will be forgiven. So basically, You reveal the light of truth to them, and when they repent and turn from it, they'll be forgiven. This is the whole point of the rod and using it to discipline us ourselves, like beating the children, right? It says, and this will be granted to all the Kodashim, or all the set apart ones, the ones who sinned until this Yom or day, if at any time they might change their minds out of their whole heart and might be lifted, or might be lifting the double inner being out of their heart, mean being double minded, going two ways, the way of light and the way of darkness, right? For the Master swore by his esteem to his elect ones, if at any time a sinning might still come to be done by them after this yom or day which has been ordained, they will not be having deliverance. And he was putting a time limit on their getting their houses in order and saying that after a certain time, his chosen had to cease from doing the wrong. Just like Jacob put away the wickedness and idolatry when they brought them in, and they had to cease sinning before he kept his vow. We have time limits and we have to get it right. He's coming back for a spotless bride. It's the same picture there. And right here, the foreshadow was his chosen to be delivered from the eternal wrath to come. There's a set time they had to have their house in order and to be cleansed of their error before it was going to be too late. This is the same thing you can see in the scriptures where it talks about those who have partaken of the Shamayim gifts, been immersed in his name, and have received of the benefits. If you then turn from him, there's no more forgiveness of sin. And that was embodied in Simon the magician, or Simon Shimon Magus, Hamag as they call it. To continue here, it says, for the possibility to have a change of mind for the righteous ones has an end. The Yamim or days of a change of mind or repentance, reformation, for all the set apart ones has or have been filled. But for the nations, a change of mind is possible even up till their last Yom or day. The Yahudim, their time had come, their culmination was at an end, and the ones that should have known were they had to convert or they were going to be vomited out. They either accepted the truth of his coming or they rejected him. And there was a set limit for that. It's that same concept, that same thing that played out with our interactions with the truth when he came in the flesh, that we can see that this has a fulfillment in a larger scale. He says, therefore, you will speak to the four leaders of the assembly in order that they might set their ways straight in righteousness, in order that they might take back in full the things which have been professed with much esteem. Therefore, all of you, the ones who are working the righteousness, remain in it, and you may not, and may you not be double souled or intervened, in order that your passing might be with the messengers, the set apart messengers. Prosperous are all of you, as many as endure the tribulation, the coming tribulation, the great tribulation, and as many as will not deny their life. If you remember, our Mashiach says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, or Chaim, existence. No man comes to the Father but through me. And Moshe foretells in Deuteronomy 32 that we would see our life, or Chaim, and we would not believe him, and he would be hanging before our eyes. Irenaeus in Against Heresies explains that that was a foretelling of our Mashiach being impaled for our sake because of our wickedness that we did. And all of this is alluding to those same things. The tribulation, the wrath to come, was the world's response to the truth. And as our Mashiach said, those who are of the truth will be with me where I am, and they shall be like him. So everyone that was perfected died, and just like he did in that time. It says, for Yahuwah swore by his son, for the ones who denied their Mashiach to have been rejected from their existence or life. That is, the ones who are now going to be denying him in the coming Yamim or days. But to the ones who formerly denied him, he became lovingly kind because of his abundant compassion. So the ones that rejected him the first time, when he came, he was calling all of them back to repentance. He came for the lost sheep. But if you deny him again, if you continue on in that that's not Tob, and that's the whole reason why the tribulation has had to come on. Verse 13. But as for you, Hermas, may you no longer remember past evil done to you by your children. So just as his chesedim, or his compassions and mercies, are renewed every dawn, we're not supposed to have a remembrance of evils, because that's what true love is. And Elohim is love. So we see that theme repeated right here. It says, nor allow your sister to do what she wants, in order that they might be cleansed from their former sins. For they will be disciplined with a righteous discipline, if at any time you might not remember the past evil which they have done. For remembrance of evil produces death, but the forgetting of them perpetual life. And it's love covers many transgressions. But as for you, Hermas, you had great tribulations for your own because of the transgressions of your house, because you did not make proper interest in them. Instead, you neglected them and wallowed together in your own activities, your wicked activities. Instead, the act for you not to depart from a living Elohim, and your simplicity and your vast self-restraint are delivering you. So in another translation, it says, it's because of your obedience, your simplicity, and restraint that you're being delivered, right? These things have delivered you, if at any time you might remain in them. And they are delivering all the ones who are working the deeds such as these, and are going in a lack of evil and simplicity. These individuals will have the strength to overcome every wickedness, and are remaining near into a perpetual life. So if we could take anything from this, what we want to do, to seek to be with all of our being, is to be simple, to not be double-minded, double-tongued, double-souled, but to simple, and to not be inclined to evil, not to think evil thoughts of anything, not of others, not of our Creator, not to do evil things, to live in simplicity and to focus on His Word. And to do that, we'll be delivered. There's no condition here for how intelligent you have to be. That it's the same for everyone. Verse 15. Happy are all the ones who are working the righteousness. They will not be utterly destroyed till an age, or even till an age. But you will speak to Maximus, behold, a extremely great tribulation is coming, if at any time you might be made to appear to deny again. Yahuwah is near the ones who are turning around or repenting, as it is written in Eldad and Medad, the ones who foretold in the desert or wilderness to the people. And this is the two elders that were not with the other elders when they were receiving of the Ruach from Moshe. They received it while they were in the camp in the wilderness, and they foretold. This is the writing, this is alluding to the writing that they had, which we don't have anymore. 17. It says, now, brothers, while I was falling asleep, something was revealed to me by a most well informed young man, who was saying to me, the elderly woman from whom you took the little book, who are you thinking that she is? I declared, the Sibyl. And if you're familiar, the Sibyl is what they call the Sibylline oracles are a collection of writings from foretellings of, excuse me, from female foretellers or prophetesses, as that word, we get it from the Greek. It's only a feminine word because it was female foretellers that received oracles about a variety of things for the topics of the future, the judgment to come, the resurrection. There was quite a bit of information that they had. A lot of it is quoted by the early patriarchs. In the apostolic constitutions, it's quoted in regard to the resurrection. And in the ante Nicene patriarchs, the writings for the first 300 years, there's at least three or four writings, I believe, that mention and quote from the Sibylline oracles about a variety of topics that's also in Scripture. So while they had some things that were interesting and it's alluding to, and some of those foretellings are actually true, it's not what was being talked about here. However, that's where he gets that from. And that's why he mentions it. A female revealing the truth of what is, it was a Sibyl to the Greeks. But it says, no, you are mistaken, he declared. Then who is she? I declared. The assembly of Elohim, he declared. I spoke to him. Then why is she an elderly woman? Because she was created first of all, he declared. And this is why she is elderly. And it is because of her that the world was fully fitted or completely made. It mentions in 2nd Baruch and 4th Ezra that all of creation, everything that was, that is, and that will be, was made for his chosen, his elect, and for them alone. The chosen of Elohim are the ones who are the body of the Mashiach. They embody the truth in creation, and that's why he is their head. And so the body of the head of the Mashiach, who is the firstborn of creation, is the one that's speaking. And so this is a parable, if you can see that. He's the one, because the created first of all, he's the body of the assembly. And later on, he'll reveal who it is that's speaking in fuller detail. Finishing up the second vision, this is verse 18. It says, now afterward I saw a vision in my house. That elderly woman came and asked me if I have already given the book to the elders. I said that I had not given it. You have done well, she declared, for I have words to add to it. Therefore, whenever I will finish off all the words, they will be made known to all the elect ones through you. Therefore, you will write two small books, and will send one to Clemens or Clement, and one to Graptes. Therefore, Clement will send it into the cities abroad, which this is Clement of Rome. He was the one that he published the recognitions of Clement. He published the apostolic constitutions, and he published the Shepard of Hermas. He was writing quite a bit of letters and writings for the books and sending them out to the different assemblies, because that's, as it says right here, for that has been permitted to him. He was well articulated and suited for that purpose, and so that's what he was doing, in addition to being the overseer of the Roman assembly. And to cap off his witness to our Creator, in the reign of his cousin Domitian, who was the son of Vespasian and brother to Titus, he was a martyr. I don't know exactly the details, but they say that he was taken out. He used to be a fisherman, or he was a sailor. He alludes to that in the recognitions when he's speaking about his previous life to Kepha. but he's taken out into a boat, and they tie an anchor to him and cast him into the sea. But it says, therefore Clemens will send it into the cities abroad, for that has been permitted to him. But Graptes will admonish the widows and the orphans. But you will read it aloud in this city together with the elders who are presiding themselves over the assembly. And that would have been the assembly that we had mentioned last week. And I believe we talked about it before we were recording this week, where Pastor Hermas, which the shepherd in Latin is pastor. So the pastor of Hermas was the overseer of um, the assembly that became known as the pastor. And before that, it was known as the Palace of the British, the Palace of the Britons, where Linus was the first overseer. And he was the son of Caractacus, they call him in Latin, or Caradoc in Britain. All right, so we'll pause for a moment and see if there's any comments or questions. All right, so continuing on with chapter 3, which is the third vision that Hermas received. It says, Vision 3. The vision which I saw, brothers, was such. After I fasted many times and beseeched Yahuwah in order that he might manifest the revelation which he made a profession to show to me through the elderly woman, on that very night the elderly woman saw me for herself, and she spoke to me. Since you are so indignant and effortful, sorry, it's that reads a little different than what I'm familiar with. It usually doesn't say indignant, but it says that he's so insatiable. He keeps harassing again and again, asking for this stuff. And if you remember, our Mashiach gave the parable of, it says in the book of Luke, that when he wanted his children to remember to pray and not lose heart, he gave them the parable of the woman who's petitioning the unrighteous judge, and how she intercedes and petitions night and day until he finally says, look, I don't do right or care about my creator or anything like that, but so I don't get worn out by listening to this woman, I'm going to do right by her. And he goes, did you not hear what that unrighteous judge said? And shall not your Father above do tob or good to those who love him? It's the same picture here. Hermas continually seeking from the truth, petitioning him until he's answered, just like it mentions in the Psalms with Dawid, how he sought him, he beseeched him, he would not be comforted until he received an answer. This is the kind of dedication that we as believers need to share and hold. Just because he doesn't answer it immediately doesn't mean we should stop. Otherwise, we're not really believing that he'll accomplish what he said. One more thing in that vein, in the writing on the Septuagint, the making of the Septuagint, it's called the letter of Aristes. And it was a gentleman who was an ambassador from Ptolemy, the pharaoh of Egypt at the time. And he was sent to the Kohen Eleazar to petition him to get a copy of the Septuagint or the copy of the scriptures translated into Greek for his library that he was making. And in the process of that, they meet the Kohen, they interview him, they have discourses, and they're speaking. And then eventually they send ambassadors to go to Ptolemy in Egypt, where he dines with them, questions them, and eventually gets them to write the Septuagint for him, or the beginnings of it. And in there, it mentions the same thing. He asks about specifically answered prayer. And one of the gentlemen answered to him that he should answer the requests of his people in the same way that our Creator does. And he says, whenever someone prays to him and they petition anything from him, if the man is worthy, our Creator will do it for him, like immediately accomplish what he desires, which is what we can see throughout the renewed covenant, in particular in what our Mashiach says, and then what Yahukanon in his epistles say, that if we have belief and we're not, our hearts don't condemn us, we have boldness before Elohim, and whatever we ask, we know we have the petitions for and we can receive it, so that we can ask for things in belief and he will accomplish what we do. Like our Mashiach said, as you believe, let it be to you. Now, the gentleman goes on to say that everyone who's worthy, their requests are answered immediately, but those who are not, they're received in some form, either in the course of their business or in a dream or something, the reasoning for why their prayer was not answered immediately. And it goes on to say through here and other places that if you continue to petition him and you have belief, what you desire will happen, but you have to keep asking until you see him actually do it. And if you stop asking, it's not because of him not doing it, it's because you don't believe. So there's a whole theme here that just because we don't get our prayers answered immediately doesn't mean we should stop, but we should check ourselves and find out if there's a reason or something preventing this from happening. And the best way to do that is to check and see if our heart condemns us of any wickedness. Plainly, if there's anything in the word that reproves us for the things that we're actually doing. But it says, since you are so indignant and effortful with the result to know everything, come into the field where you are farming, and I will be made to appear to you about the 5th hour, and I will show to you what it is necessary for you to see. I asked her, saying, Lady, into what part of the field am I to go? Wherever you want, she declared. I selected for myself a beautiful place which was secluded. But before I was to utter to her and to speak the name of the place, she said to me, I will be there, wherever you want. Therefore, brothers, so she didn't learn it from him, but knew it. That's another illusion of who's being spoken to. Just one moment. I selected for my. Oh, I already read that part. So she knew before he said, and she's going to meet him there. It says, therefore, brothers, I went into the field and counted up the hours, and I came to the place where I ordered her to come, or where I was ordered of her to come. And I looked at an ivory bench lying there, and on the bench was lying a linen cushion, and on top a coverlet of linen Carpathian flax was rolled up. After I saw these being laid there, and that there was not one person in the place, I became utterly astounded, and something like a trembling took hold of me. And my hairs stood upright, and something like a fit of shuddering came to me, since I was alone. Therefore, after I came to myself, and after I was caused to have remembrance of the esteem of Elohim, and after I took courage, I, after I got on my knees, once again, as I had also formerly done, was confessing forth my sins to Yahuwah. So basically, he goes to the place that he thought of. He finds the bench there, and he's confounded and amazed, trembling, and then he remembers who he's dealing with, drops on his knees and prays and confesses. Now she came with 6 young men whom I had also formerly seen, and she was stood by me. And she listened attentively while I was praying to Elohim and confessing forth my sins to Yahuwah. And after she touched me, she said, Hermas, cease yourself from asking again about all these things of your sins. Also be asking about righteousness, in order that you might take some part from out of it into your house. And she arose me out by the hand, and she led me to the bench. And she said to the young men, Be going away and be building. And after the event, for the young men to retire, and we were having become alone, she said to me, Sit down here. I said to her, Lady, permit the elders to sit down first. Do what I say to you, she declared. Sit down. Therefore, when I was wanting to sit down on the right side, she did not allow me. Instead, she motioned to me with her hand in order that I might sit down on the left side. Now, one thing I'd like to point out, whenever we come to the truth, he meets us where we are, but the condition of the truth has to prevail. One of the things that we can see throughout the scriptures is whenever he comes, those that are simply obedient and listen to the word, they receive healing, restoration, revelation, all tobe things or benefits. In him it is yes and amen, just like it says. But that's why she says, do what I said. You have to actually follow it. When he spit on his hands and made clay out of the mud and put it in the sockets of the blind man, and he told him, go wash yourself in the river or the pool, which is called the sent one. And when he did so, in simple obedience, he was made well. It's the same thing in every condition that you can read all the different ways. When they did what he said in simple obedience, that's what brings about the benefit. But it's also, as we are, this was the point, he's sitting on the left side because that's where he is deserving to be right now, as we'll find. But as the truth is reflected, is what we always witness, is something to pay attention to. And that's also why we can see things change over time. The covenant that he revealed, for example, changed as he made it more fully known and he gave the truth to everyone. It says, therefore, while I was thoroughly rationalizing and grieving because she did not allow me to sit down on the right side, she said to me, are you being grieved, Hermas? The place on the right side is for others. The ones who have already been well pleasing to Elohim and suffered for the sake of the name. But you are lacking much in order that you might sit down with them. Instead, remain in your simplicity as you are now remaining, and you will sit down with them, and with as many of those, if at any time they might work their works, and might bear up under the things which they have also borne up under. And this is something I tell my children all the time. If you want to have the same benefits of Dawid, you have to have, or David, or Abraham, Yitzhak, or any of the righteous. If you want to be taken to paradise like Ezra and Baruch, or Hanok, or Eliyahu, you have to meet the same conditions. Because Yahuwah is not impartial with any man. He does not play favorites or take bribes. He has one standard. So if you meet the conditions, the benefit's yours. And that's true for everyone. That's why each one will receive their own esteem based on their own works. And it's why we're all enjoined to work out our own deliverance with fear and trembling. To continue on verse 10, it says, what have they borne up under? I declared. Be hearing, she declared. Whips, guard houses or prisons, great tribulations, stakes, beasts for the sake of the name. Due to this, the right side of the set apart place are for those individuals and for whoever else, if at any time he might suffer due to the name. And this is what our Mashiach said, prosperous are those who suffer for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the reign of the Shamayim. But the left side are for the rest of them. Instead, both the same gifts and the same things which have been professed are reserved for even the ones sitting themselves on the right side and the ones sitting on the left side. The only difference is that those individuals are sitting on themselves on the right side are having a certain esteem, so they have more honor. All right. Now you are eager to sit down with them on the right side. But instead, your lackings are many, but you will be cleansed from your lackings. And all the ones who are not being double souled or double minded will be cleansed from all their sinful actions up to this yom or day. Just like the two sons of Zebedee, they wanted to know if they can have one sit on the right hand and one on the left. And he said, it's not for me to put you there, but it's for whoever has been appointed for that place by my Father. And it's here where we get to see what that means and who's appointed for what places. In verse 12, after she spoke these things, she was wanting to go off. But after I fell before her feet, I asked her by Yahuwah, in order that she might exhibit to me the vision which she had made a profession that she would show to me. But she again took hold of me for herself by the hand, and she arose me and sat me down on the bench on the left side. But she was also sitting herself down on the right. And after she lifted up a certain bright stick, she said to me, are you looking at something great? I said to her, Lady, I am looking at nothing. She said to me, behold, do you not see opposite you a great tower being built upon waters with bright quadrilangular stones? I apologize. Quadrangular stones. That was a mouthful. I apologize. Shouldn't have been that difficult. Verse 14. And just so you know, this is the first vision about the tower. There's actually two visions that show a tower that represent the righteous. This is a parable of that. It goes into the great detail about the character of the individuals and each of us as believers. But because this equates them into the building of a tower, the videos from the anti-Mashiach or Antichrist for Dummies, they try to say that this is not to be regarded in any capacity because it was Nicolaitans trying to say that the building of his assembly was like the Tower of Babel. I have no idea why the author comes to that conclusion, but Abba willing, we will see as we go through this that there is nothing confusing, there's nothing negative or dark about the writing. It is literally about getting the plank out of your eye so that you can be pleasing to your maker. And it's an equal opportunity plank remover. It covers just about every character fault anyone can have. And since all of us are sinners, it applies to every one of us. It says, now the tower was being built in quadrangular shape by the 6 young men, the ones having come with her. But tens of thousands of other men were bringing away stones to it. Indeed, some of them from out of the deep, but others from out of the earth, or eretz, and they were giving them over to the 6 young men. But these 6 were taking them and were building. Indeed, all the stones which were being drawn out of the deep, they were putting into the building as they were. For the stones were joining and were fitting together exactly into the junction with the other stones. And they were being glued so tightly that one or to one another in this manner, so as for their junction to not be being made to appear, meaning their seams were invisible. Now the building of the tower was appearing as if having been built out of one stone, but of the other stones, the ones brought from the dry, indeed some of them they were throwing away, but some of them they were putting into the building. But others they were cutting down and were casting a long ways from the tower. But many other stones were lying in a circle around the tower, and they were not making use of them on the building. For some of them were having become scabby, but different ones were having cracks, but others were having been chipped, but others were white and round, not joining into the building. But I was looking at different stones being cast a long ways away from the tower and coming into the way, and not remaining in the way, but instead rolling out of the way into a pathless region, or a wanderless path out of the way. But different stones were falling into a fire and they were burned. But I was seeing different ones falling near waters and not able to be rolled into the water, although they were wanting to be rolled and to come into the water. After she showed these to me, she was wanting to be running off. I said to her, Lady, what profit is it to me to have seen these things and not to be knowing what they are? You see, he gets the vision, and then immediately he seeks for comprehension from the same source. She answered me and said, You are clever, or you are a clever man, wanting to be knowing the things about the tower. They usually translate that as crafty, and the word in Hebrew would be, what is it? Aram ayin resh wa mem. It's the word for clever or crafty, and it's literally to perceive what is exalted. It says, Yes, lady, I declared, in order that I might bring a message about these things back to the brothers, and that they might become more cheerful, and when they hear these things, they might be knowing Yahuwah in much esteem. So, revealing the knowledge of the truth is what helps us to know Yahuwah, which is why our Mashiach said very plainly, If you have seen me, you have seen the Father, because the truth makes him known. But she declared, Indeed, many will hear, but some from among them, when they hear, will be made to rejoice. But some will weep. Instead, even these, if at any time they might hear and might change their minds, they will also be made to rejoice. Therefore, be hearing the parables of the tower, for I will reveal everything to you, and no longer be troubling me about a revelation. For these revelations have an end, for they have been fulfilled. Instead, you will not cease requesting for revelations for yourself, for you are shameless. Indeed, the tower which you are looking at being built, that is I, the assembly, the one who was seen by you even now and on the former occasion. Therefore, be inquiring of me whatever you might want to know about the tower, and I will reveal it to you, in order that you might be made to rejoice with the Kodashim, or set apart ones. And now we'll get a revelation for all the different things that were in that. And this is a smaller version. There's a much longer version we'll get to later on. So that goes into even greater detail about all the characters of believers. This one also will cover it. I won't be interrupting too much more because it still has a bit to go. However, if you do have comments or questions, you can either put it in the comments afterwards or we can wait until we're done. I mean, in the comments in the chat. Sorry. All right. Then I said to her, Lady, since you once deemed me worthy to reveal everything to me, reveal it. But she said to me, Whatsoever is being made capable to be revealed to you will be revealed. Only let your heart be being turned toward Elohim, and do not be double souled or double minded about whatever you might see. I inquired of her, Why, lady, is the tower being built upon waters? She declared, as I even spoke to you on the former, you are insistent about the writings and you are seeking out things diligently. Therefore, by seeking out these things, you are finding the truth. Seek and you will find, knock and it will be opened, ask and it will be given. The same picture here. But we seek it from the word. We're diligent about what's written. Therefore, be hearing why the tower is being built upon waters. It is because your existence or life was delivered and will be delivered through water. And that's the water of immersion and also the water of his word, which is poured out from above. Now, the tower has been founded by the word of the Almighty and splendorous name, but it is being upheld by the unseeable power of the Master. I answered and said to her, Lady, this is a great and marvelous thing. But the young men, the six, the ones who are building, who are they, lady? These are the set apart messengers of Elohim, the first who, or the first ones who were created, to whom Yahuwah delivered all his creation, for them to grow it and to be building it up, and to be being masters over all the creation. Therefore, through these, the building of the tower will be finished. And on the first Yom of creation, something that we also covered in the conference, all the Ruach, all the spirits or the Ruachoth were made, including all the messengers and all the inner beings of men that would ever be created. They were made on the first Yom. And it mentions that all the sons of Elohim shouted for joy when the stars sang together, as mentioned in Job, on that first Yom after those things were created. That was where that was. But they're the ones that minister and delivered all his creation over to it. It's the same thing with after the Tower of Babel, the table of nations, the 70 nations that were broken up were given over to the messengers to reign over them. But it was our Mashiach alone, or Yahuwah only, who reigns over the seed of Yisrael, or the house of Jacob. But it says, therefore, through these, through the messengers, right, the building of the tower will be finished. But who are the others, the ones who are bringing away the stones? These are also set apart messengers of Elohim, but those six are surpassing them or of greater eminence. Therefore, the building of the tower will be completely finished, and all will be unitedly gladdened in a circle around the tower and will esteem Elohim because the building of the tower was finished. So there's all the messengers of our Creator, the Melachim. It's normally translated as angels, but a messenger is someone who comes bearing a message. Their whole purpose is to help build the assembly or the body of our Mashiach, which is the dwelling place of Elohim that's not made with the hands of a man. This is what all the epistles are alluding to, the building, the Ruach house, the building of the spiritual stones, or as Shaul puts it, how he's laboring over them until Mashiach is born again in them. It's all the same it's all the same picture alluded to in different ways about conforming men, renewing our minds, and having us be the well-pleasing and inhabited by the Ruach of our Creator. It says, I inquired of her, saying, Lady, I was wanting to know what is the egress of the stones and their power. She answered and said to me, It is not because you are worthier than all others, in order that this might be revealed to you. For others are ahead of you and better than you, to whom it was necessary for these visions to be revealed. But in order that the name of Elohim might be esteemed, it was revealed to you and his and will still be revealed due to the double minded, the ones who are thoroughly rationalizing in their hearts if whether these things are so or are not. Be saying to them that all these things are truthful, and none of them are from outside the truth. Instead, all of them are strong and firm and having been founded, and they're founded upon the rock, which is the the truth on which our step treads. Now be hearing about the stones, the ones which are going away into the building. Therefore, indeed, the stones, the ones which are quadrangular and white and are fitting together exactly into the junctions, these are the emissaries and overseers and teachers and ministers, the ones who went in accordance with the solemnity of Elohim, and who purely and solemnly oversaw and taught and ministered the elect ones of Elohim. Indeed, some of them have slept, but some of them are still living, and they themselves have always fit together and have shalom among themselves, and were hearing one another. This is why their junctions fit together in the building of the tower. So they're at shalom with one another, is what he's saying. But who are the stones which are being drawn up out of the deep and which are putting on into the building, and their junctions are fitting together with the other stones, the ones which have been already built? These are the ones who already slept and suffered for the sake of the name of Yahuwah, meaning that they were martyrs. That's why they were brought out of the deep being alluded to as the grave, which is another thing that you'll see throughout the scriptures, all the way back into Genesis and the creation account. On the fifth day, he made the Ayin, which is the beast of the earth and the beast out of the sea, Leviathan and Behemoth. It mentions it's the first works of hands with his flesh, or it's the first works of flesh with his hands, but the last beast kingdoms established in the world. Then you have Pe, which is the open mouth, and that's the fish and the teeming life of the oceans. And then Zaudi, which is the birds and all flying things. And then after the fourth Yom, the sun, moon, and stars, in which our Mashiach came preaching the reign of Elohim and set up the assemblies, then the the wrong beast system was established. Leviathan came about when they rejected the truth, and those that rejected him were sucked into the belly of the beast, just like Jonah, when they would not preach to the lost. Then you have Pe, the teeming life of the ocean, and the fish, which represent like those that are in the grave, but the clean ones, the ones that reflect the light and can navigate the waters, those are the ones that the fishers of men, the emissaries, came to catch. And while they get pulled up into the breath of life out of the abyss, they die. So that's a picture of the martyrs after he came that were going to be delivered but lose their life and be a witness to the truth in the process. But lady, I am wanting to know who are the other stones, the ones being brought from the dry. She was declaring, indeed, the ones which are going away into the building and are not being hewn, these Yahuwah approved, because they went into straightness of, or they went in the straightness of Yahuwah and set themselves straight in his instructions. So they heard the word and did it. But who are the ones which are being led and being put into the building? They are young in the belief and trustworthy, but they are being admonished by the messengers for the result to be doing what is tob or good, due to the fact that no wickedness was found in them. But who are the ones whom they were throwing away and were casting aside? These are ones who have sinned and who are wanting to change their mind, so they're repentant. Due to this reason, they are not hurled off a long ways outside the tower, because if at any time they might change their mind, they will be of good use within the building. Therefore, the ones who are going to be changing their mind or repenting will be strong in the belief if at any time they might change their mind. If at any time they might change their mind now during the time in which the tower is being built. So if we repent while an opportunity presents itself, but once he says the tower is done, that's it. But if at any time the building might be finished, they no longer have a place. Instead, they will be outcasts, but they have only this advantage to be being laid outside, or to be being laid beside the tower. But are you wanting to know who about the ones who are being cut down and are being cast far from the tower? These are the sons of the lawlessness. Now they had belief in hypocrisy, and every wickedness did not depart from them. This is why they have no deliverance, because they were not of good use within the building due to their wickedness or wickednesses. This is why they were pulverized and hurled a long ways away, due to the anger of Yahuwah, because they provoked him to anger. But the other stones which you have seen, many being laid around, but not going away into the building, indeed these stones, the ones having become scabby, are the ones who have known the truth, but are not remaining on it, nor even were they being glued, or neither were they joining themselves to the set apart ones. Due to this, they are useless. So these are people who hear the truth, but they're not remaining in it, and they don't associate or fellowship with believers. But who are the stones having the cracks? These are the ones who are holding things against one another in their hearts and are not at being at shalom among themselves. Instead, they have only a face of shalom, or the appearance of shalom. But whenever they might withdraw away from one another, the wickednesses are remaining in their hearts, like Edom after he separated from his brother and was instigated by his children. The evil remaining in his heart came back to the surface. It says, therefore, these are the cracks which the stones have, but the stones which have been chipped, these are the ones who indeed have had belief, and they have a majority part in the righteousness, but they have some parts of the lawlessness in them. Due to this reason, they are chipped and not totally complete. Now, in the Dead Sea Scrolls and a variety of other places, it talks about the two Ruach oath, the two spirits that are in a man, the Ruach of light, which is Melchizedek, our Mashiach, right? Or the messenger of darkness, the Ruach of evil, Malki Rasha, the king of evil, or Satan. And it says very clearly that depending on the amount of the Ruach that you have in you at the time of his visitation, that's what we're going to be judged for. And that's the rewards, either condemnation or eternal unspeakable good things, is in proportion to the measure of what Ruach we have in us. The more we can cultivate the mentality and the things of his Ruach and be doing that, and more particularly having his word in our mind, because his word is Ruach and existence and life, right? But the more we can do this and conform ourselves to his image, the the more we can be like these stones that are profitable and fit within the building. 36. says, "But lady, who are the stones which are white and round, and which are not joining into the building?" She answered me and said, "How long are you going to be stupid and unintelligent, and to be inquiring about everything and comprehend nothing?" Now, she says this after giving quite a few examples of explaining different things about the stones and then what that represents. This can be for anyone. This can apply to any one of us when we read these parables and we see these things and we have what the word tells us is, why do you still not comprehend? Our Mashiach said to his taught ones, he says, "Are you still without comprehension? Do you not perceive?" And then he explains the same thing that he had just said. Because he is the truth, he repeats these things again and again, but he tells them and makes them fully known to his taught ones who come to him, and not just to everyone. He says, "How long are you going to be stupid and unintelligent, and to be inquiring about everything and comprehend nothing? These indeed have belief, but also have riches of this age, which is why they're large and not fitting right. Whenever a tribulation might come, they deny their master due to their riches and due to their activities." And I answered her and said, "Therefore, lady, at what time will they be of good use into the building? Whenever the riches, the ones which are leading their inner beings away, might be trimmed from them." She declared, "Then they will be of good use within the building to Elohim." And that's the same thing our Mashiach said, that it's hard for a rich man to enter into the reign. He told that one when he was doing all the commandments, he said, "One thing you lack." After he looked at him and he loved him, he told him, "You lack one thing to be perfect. Go sell what you have, give to the poor, and follow me." In truth, do all the things that he was doing, and they'd have the same reward. That thing was our Mashiach, who is the possessor and creator of all things, who is the richest man in existence as being the supreme man. He gave up all his possessions and gave to the poor. So he was enjoining from that man nothing but what he himself did, and even to a lesser extent. To continue here, it says, "For even as the stone, the round stone, is not able to become quadrangular, if at any time portions of it might not be trimmed from it and thrown away, so also in this manner, the ones who are rich in this age, if at any time their riches might not be trimmed from them, are not able to become of good use to Yahuwah, or of tob use to Yahuwah. First know this truth from your own experience. When you were rich, you were useless, but now you are of good use and profitable to the life. All of you be becoming of good use to Elohim, or of tob use to Elohim, for even you are being made used of from out of the same stones." Meaning we all have the same way that we're coming to him as the building of his assembly. "But the different stones which you saw being cast a long ways away from the tower, and which are falling into the way and are being rolled out of the way into roadless regions, these are the ones who indeed have had belief. But because of their double mindedness, or double soul, it says, they have dismissed themselves from their way. That is the true way. Therefore, thinking that they are being able to find a better way, they are being misled and are becoming miserable, walking around in the pathless regions." So, trying to come up with something other than what he gave us, they wander out of the way because they're double minded. "But the ones who are falling into the fire and being burned, these are the ones who, even into the end, went away from Elohim, the living Elohim, and on whose heart the act to change their mind no longer ascended." So they had no no remembrance to repent come into their heart, due to the desires of their lasciviousness and the wickednesses which they worked, like Pharaoh's heart being hardened because of the innocent blood that he'd shed. You can't harm the innocent and be forgiven. There's certain conditions where we do things and then we have to go through the choices of our actions. And some of those can have very drastic consequences, including being forever barred from repentance and having no forgiveness both in this age and the age to come for certain things that we can do. Verse 41. But are you wanting to know who are the other stones, the ones which are falling near the waters and are not being able to be rolled into the water? These are the ones who heard the account and are wanting to be immersed into the name of Yahuwah. But next, whenever the purity of the truth might come into their remembering, they are changing their mind and are again going after their own desires, their wicked desires. Therefore, she finished her exposition of the tower. Still, I, unabased, inquired of her if, as a result, all these stones, the ones having been thrown away and not joining into the building of the tower, if a change of mind is possible for them, and if they have a place within this tower. They have a change of mind available, she declared, but instead they are not being able to join into this tower, but they will be joined into a different, much lesser place, but only whenever they might be tortured and might fulfill the days of their sins. Now, that might sound confusing, and someone might use this as a pretext to say, oh, purgatory must be true. But if we keep in mind, there is the resurrection of the righteous, in which those that are of the first resurrection, who are the children of the reign, that have been immersed in his name and continue with him to death, they become like the messengers. They partake of the resurrection at his second coming, and they are Kohanim and sovereigns with their Elohim during the millennial reign. The second death has no power over them. Those that are still mortal at his coming, as well as those that after the general resurrection and are found to be acceptable and brought into eternal life, they're given a lesser place, but they're still delivered. And that's the context that I see out of this as well. I don't have any other means where this makes sense that I'm familiar with, but if you can find something else, please feel free to share. Continuing on here, it says, and this is why they will be transferred to another place, because they partook of the word, the righteous word, and then they will only happen to be transferred out of their tortures if the thought of their changing their mind from the evil works which they worked might ascend on their heart. But if at any time the thought might not ascend on their heart, they are not delivered due to their hardness of heart. Therefore, when I had ceased asking about all these matters, she said to me, do you want to see something else? As I was very eager for the opportunity to behold more, I became deeply joyful at the prospect to see visions. After she looked at me, she smiled a little and she said to me, are you looking at 7 women in a circle around the tower? I am looking at them, lady, I declared. This tower is being sustained by them in accordance with a commandment of Yahuwah. Now be hearing their operations. Indeed, the first of them, the one clasping her hands together, is being called belief. The elect ones of Elohim are delivered through this woman. And belief comes by hearing, hearing by the word of Elohim. It's the shield of our of belief that we're supposed to hold on to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked one. And it's through belief that it's possible to please Elohim. And it's through belief that our prayers are answered. So it's the principal thing. Now the other, the one having been girded about and displaying manliness, is being called self-restraint. She is a daughter of belief. Therefore, whoever might follow her will be happy in his life, because he will distance himself from all the wicked works, having belief that, if at any time he might distance himself from every wicked desire, he will inherit a perpetual existence or life. But the others, who are they, lady? They are the daughters of one another. Now, this is what they are being called. Indeed, the one is simplicity, but the other experience, but the other lack of evil or innocence, but the other solemnity or sober mindedness, but the other love. Therefore, whenever you might do all the works of their mother, then you are being able to exist or live. Lady, I declared, I am wanting to know what certain powers each have. By hearing the powers which they are having, she declared, now their powers are being grasped by one another, and they follow one another exactly in the order in which they have been birthed. I'm sorry. Just all right, so verse 49. It says, but the others, who are they, lady? They are the daughters of one another. Now this is what they are being called. Indeed, the one is simplicity, but the other experience, but the other lack of evil, but the other solemnity, but the other love. Therefore, whenever you might do all the works of their mother, which was belief, then you are being able to exist or live. Lady, I declared, I am wanting to know what certain powers each have. Be hearing the powers which they are having, she declared. Now their powers are being grasped by one another, and they follow one another exactly in the order in which they have been birthed. Out of belief is birthed self-restraint. Out of self-restraint, simplicity. Out of simplicity, lack of evil. Out of lack of evil, solemnity. Out of solemnity, experience. Out of experience, love. And this is like the list of things that you can also see in Kepha's epistle, where he talks about you start here and then you do this, and this one means the next one, and it culminates in brotherly affection and then brotherly love. But it's the same principle. Here we're seeing it in, it'll be revealed that these are the Ruach oath, or these are the spirits that carry a believer through the gate of our Mashiach. And if we're not walking with these Ruach oath, we're not his. We can't be put into the building and be effectual. Therefore, their works are pure and solemn and el-breathed. Therefore, whoever might be a slave or servant of them and might be strong to grasp their works will have a habitation in the tower along with the Kodashim, or set apart ones of Elohim. Now, I was inquiring of her about the seasons, if the complete finish of the age is already here. But she screamed with a great voice, saying, unintelligent man, do you not see that the tower is still being built? Therefore, if at any time the tower which is being built might be completely finished, then the end is here. Just like our Mashiach says, he will not come in enmity. And we find in Revelation that he returns for a spotless bride that's been made ready, and she's prepared herself, right? Instead, it will be built upon quickly. Do not be inquiring of me anymore. This recollecting and the renewing of your Ruach oath is sufficient for you and for the set apart ones. Instead, this revelation was not revealed to you alone, but instead in order that you might make it clear to everyone. After 3 days, meaning after his death and the resurrection of the truth in creation. For it is necessary for you to comprehend this first. Now, this is what I am instructing you first, Hermas, to utter all these words which I am going to be saying to you into the ears of the set apart ones, in order that when they hear and do them, they might be cleansed from their wickednesses, but even you along with them. Hear me, you children. I nourished you up in much simplicity and lack of evil and solemnity because of the loving kindness of Yahuwah. He dropped righteousness on each of you in order that you might be pronounced righteous and might be made set apart from all wickedness and from all crookedness. But you are not wanting to be ceased from your wickedness. Now, therefore, all of you, hear me, and being at shalom among yourselves, and be looking after one another, and be taking part in helping one another. And all of you, do not be partaking of the superabundant share of the creatures of Elohim alone. Instead, also be sharing with the ones who are lacking things for themselves. So don't eat your bread by yourself. You share with those in need. For indeed, the ones from their many meats are contracting a weakness upon their flesh, and they are injuring their flesh. But of the ones who are not having meats, and that doesn't mean like beef and steak or fish, that means not having lots of choice portions, right? Their flesh is being injured due to the fact that they are not having the sufficient amount of the nourishment, and their body is being utterly destroyed. Therefore, this lack of sharing is harmful to all of you, meaning the glutton who incurs demons from what he's doing, and then the one who's starving who is hurting in the body physically, right? The ones who are having abundance and are not sharing with the ones who are lacking things for themselves. All of you be looking out for the judgment, the judging which is coming upon you. Therefore, all of you, the ones who are surpassing others, seek out the ones who are hungering as long as the tower is not yet finished. For after the event for the tower to be finished, you will want to be doing good and you will not have an opportunity. So when we have the time before he returns, this is where we do the works of righteousness and store up treasures for ourselves that won't fade. But once he comes, that's going to be an opportunity that's lost. The ones who are prancing in your riches, be looking out, lest perhaps the ones who are being made to lack will groan, and their groaning will ascend before Yahuwah. And all of you, along with your good things, will be locked out outside the door of the tower. Now, therefore, I say to all of you, the ones who are leaders of the assembly, and to the ones who are first seats, or in the first seats, do not be becoming like the druggists. I don't get that. Let me see. Oh, sorcerers, right. Therefore, indeed, the sorcerers carry their sorceries within their cartons, but you carry yours and your poison within the heart. All of you are hardened and do not want to cleanse your hearts, and you do not want to mix together your sensibleness upon a clean heart, in order that you might have loving kindness from the sovereign, the great sovereign. Therefore, be looking out, you children, lest perhaps these dissensions of yours will defraud you of your existence. How are you wanting to be disciplining the elect ones of Yahuwah, while you yourselves are not having discipline? Therefore, be disciplining one another, and be being at shalom among yourselves, in order that I, after I have stood cheerful opposite to the Father, might give back an account in behalf of all of you to Yahuwah. Therefore, when she ceased herself from uttering with me, the 6 young men, the ones who were building, came and carried her away toward the tower, and 4 others lifted the bench and also carried it away toward the tower. I did not see their faces, because they were having turned away from me. But while she was going away, I was asking her, in order that she might reveal to me about the 3 forms in which she was made to appear to me. She answered me and said, "It is necessary for you to inquire of a different person about these things, in order that they might be revealed to you." Now, indeed, brothers, in the former vision, the one I had last year, she was made seen to me as an extremely elderly woman and was sitting in a seat. But in the other vision, indeed, she was having a younger countenance, but her flesh and her hair were elderly. So her face was younger, but the rest of her still looked elderly. And she was uttering to me while she was standing up. But she was more cheerful than formerly. But in the third vision, she was entirely younger and of remarkable beauty, but she was only having hair which was elderly. But at the end, she was cheerful and sitting on a bench. I was extremely, deeply grieved about these things because of my wanting to know this revelation. And in a vision of the night, I looked at the elderly woman speaking to me. Every asking needs humble mindedness. Therefore, fast, and you will take for yourself from Yahuwah what you are requesting. So another version says that when you pray, you have to humble yourself. So fast and pray, and then you'll get your request answered. Therefore, I fasted for 1 day, and that same night a young man was made seen to me, and he said to me, "Why are you, by your own hand, requesting for revelations in your beseeching? Be looking out, lest perhaps you might harm your flesh by requesting too much for yourself. Be being sufficed with these revelations. Surely you are not being able to see stronger revelations than those which you have seen, are you?" I answered him and said, "Master, I am only making request for myself in order that there might be a totally complete revelation about the 3 forms of the elderly woman." He answered me and said, "How long are all of you going to be unintelligent? Instead, it is the double-mindedness of all of you which are making all of you unintelligent, and the act to not being having your heart directed towards Yahuwah." I answered him again, speaking, "Instead, from you, Master, we will know these things more precisely for ourselves." So again, he inquires all things of the word and gets revelation. "Be hearing," he declared, "about the 3 forms which you are seeking for. Why, indeed, was she made seen to you as an elderly woman and sitting on a seat in the first vision? Because your Ruach was elderly and has already been withered away, and is not having any power in consequence of your maladies and double-mindedness. For even as the elders, no longer having a hope or expectation of their act to rejuvenate, have nothing else that they might be anticipating except their sleep, in the same way also all of you, softened by the mundane affairs of life, delivered yourselves to this indifference, and did not cast your worries upon Yahuwah. Instead, your mindset was shattered, and all of you grew old with your griefs. Therefore, the master, I was wanting to know why she was sitting in a seat. Because every weak person sits himself down in a seat on account of his weakness, in order that the infirmity of his body might be supported. Here you have the type of the first vision. Now, in the second vision, you saw her standing and having a younger countenance, and being more cheerful in comparison with the former. But her flesh and her hair were elderly. Be hearing this parable also, he declared. Whenever a certain man is an elder himself, having already lost hope, due to his weakness and his destitution, he is waiting to receive nothing else except the last yamim, or day, of his life. Next, suddenly, an inheritance was left behind to him. But after he heard this, he was arisen out of his state, and after he became deeply joyful, he dressed himself with this strength, and he is no longer reclining himself. Instead, he has stood up, and his ruach is being rejuvenated, the ruach which has already been corrupted from his former acts. And he is no longer sitting himself down. Instead, he is acting like a man. This also happened in this same manner, after you heard the revelation which Yahuwah revealed to you, that Yahuwah had compassion on all of you and rejuvenated your Ruach oath, or spirits, and that you put off your maladies from yourselves, and strength came to you, and you were empowered in the belief, and that Yahuwah, after he saw your strengthening, were made to rejoice. And this is why he made the building of the tower clear to all of you, and will make different matters clear, if at any time you live at shalom among yourselves out of a whole heart. Now, in the third vision, you saw her as a younger and beautiful and cheerful, and her form was beautiful. For exactly as if at any time a good message might come to someone who is grieving, he has straightway forgot the former griefs and waits to receive nothing else except the message which he heard. And for this, or sorry, and for his remaining days is being made strong into doing what is Tob, and his Ruach is being rejuvenated due to the joy which he took. So also in the same way, all of you have taken a rejuvenation after you saw these Tob things. And because you saw her sitting on a bench, this means that the positioning is strong, because the bench has 4 feet and has stood strongly. For even the world is being upheld by 4 elements. Therefore, the ones who change their mind totally, completely, will become young, like their youth will be renewed like an eagle's, right? And have been founded after they change their mind out of a whole heart. You are having the revelation in full, totally complete. May you no longer request anything about a revelation, but if at any time something might be being necessary, it will be revealed to you. All right, and that was quite longer than I was thinking it would be, but that's all right. I think that's a good place for us to stop there, and we'll go with comments and questions. For now, though, everyone have a wonderful Shabbat, and we will see you next week.